Howdy y'all, I'm Jaime, this is the House of Kog, Welcome back to the stage of history. This is episode 9. Hakya doag, noin, nodi, meson. Alrighty, bon appetit, peso. Alright, so we have the steering wheel mounted back on. The stemming net goes to 35 foot-pounds, and then you just have your cover, pops right on, and that's good. Next I'm gonna be showing the linkage adjustment for the transmission, and that is fun because it takes a long while to dial it in, and that's what's next. So alignments here, or rather adjustments. You gotta line them up though. So for the column shifts, just to break it down a little, this right here swings over here, and you'll see that little, I guess you could say, nipple goes right in this little recess here. So this swings out this way, and then what happens is it holds onto it essentially, and then it'll move it through the different gear. But just for some understanding of how this works. So this goes over. Oftentimes this will be out of alignment, so you'll need to be adjusting this here and here. But also for what this does here, you'll need to loosen these. This is 7/16. What this does is it'll bring this arm right here over towards the firewall side, so it'll bring it closer to this little pocket that you need to get into as it moves over. These are already loose. This will take, I believe, a 1/2 inch or 9/16. So what you'll want to do is you'll want to loosen it, and I give credit to Luke, I believe it's his name. He gave me the basis for this. He did his a little differently, but for my application it helped out. So you want to loosen this. You want to have the transmission in neutral first. You'll loosen this guy enough that it'll slide in and out. And once it's in neutral, you'll want to then loosen it, or tighten it rather. And then once it's tightened, you'll want to go through the gear like this, manually push it in and out. So this will be your second and third, see? And like that. But essentially goes up and down. And for this, you want to have it such that the length of the rod, as is bolted to this here, can accommodate it traveling all the way down and then all the way up. Once that's set up, you'll then want to switch over to this one, the other one rather. Same process. Loosen this up, and then see about where you'll need to travel up and down. And then once that's about where you need it to be, you'll then start adjusting this to see where it makes contact here, that nipple and the little space in here. Alright, so we'll be doing that. So in the video that I referenced, I believe from Luke, he's had a bolt here, and he ended up whacking this here to rotate it over. For my application, I don't have that, as you can see, but in order to get it to move like this, I did have to loosen it from the column, the mast, the 2 bolts underneath. Here's the steering column here. There's 2 bolts that go underneath here. I have to loosen those. That way I can get this to move around a bit, and it rotates. But when I did this a long time ago, I didn't have to do that. I was able to move this without having to loosen it, I imagine, because of all this stuff was just worn out. And if you can, use a ratcheting wrench, because it's so much easier. It's got that. And also, Eckler sells, from what I can see, the bushings that go in between this here, in between here.
See? Nope, I have to raise it some more. So I gotta loosen this nut here and then raise this arm right here. That way the cup and the nipple here can mesh together. This takes a little time. Remember when I first did it, it took me like a good 8 hours. I know what I was doing. I kind of know what I'm doing. Let's see. Where's it? Just a hair more, I think. Let's see right now. So, having trouble getting the head in, so turn one way, turn it around, turn it around. Alright, so it's been shifting a lot better right now. It's a little notchy in the third gear, but I imagine since I've driven it a long time, and it's cold outside, that it just needs to get warmed up essentially. You know how that is with old cars. And also what I noticed when I first did this, that these rods had a lot of movement around up and down vertically. What I ended up doing was making some bushings down there in the shift linkage, and that freed up a lot of slack and it made the shifts a lot tighter. So that might be something you can consider doing as well. I also want to say is there's a serious lack of respect here for me. This car has a serious lack of respect. I had to make some more adjustments. It wasn't going down to third. It would kind of stop. So I kind of thought about it intuitively and the angle it was going down, and realized I had to move it up. And sure enough, moving it further up, the arm here ended up working to get down to third. But when I moved this up, I had to move this up as well. So you're gonna bounce around between these and fine tune it to get into to line up. Also, I remember when I did this a long time ago, before all this was new and stuff like that, is was able to move this and slide it over that way, just a hair, and they actually ended up making the shift throws a lot shorter. But as it stands, when you do that, you're gonna have to have it come up into gear. So this would be into second and so forth. So both arms have to be up. That way you can see whether they're gonna run into this here.
Alright, and that'll do it for my segment. Now I'm going to kick it over to Jason.
Well, Jaime, thank you for kicking it to me. Here's what we got going on. So on the subject of the oil pump and the oil pump pickup. So what we're going to do is, after some discussion with my dad and talking a little bit with Jaime and a little bit back and forth, so as you see here, and I believe I've showed this before, my oil pump has a thicker bottom plate than stock. And when you try to put the pickup tube on, it doesn't quite sit appropriately because of it. It wants to try to sit flat like so, but it can't because the plate's too thick. And factory, this is about where the plate would be at the bottom of where this tab is here. So what I've decided, I called and talked to Butler Performance, and they said that you can definitely weld this. They have that provision there for people who don't want to weld or would like to just have it bolted in or do both. So I'm planning on, as you see, I already started using my metal hacksaw and I'm cutting the weld off, but I just wanted to show you guys that before I got it done. There we go. So as you can see now, It's off. I'm gonna try to see if I can get in there with my rotary file and grind some of the weld down just a bit more. But that's why I always keep a metal hacksaw on hand, because you never know when you can use it. So that's why I like keeping a metal hacksaw on hand. You never know when you can use it. I mean, I love power tools as much, if not more, than the next person, but there is something to be said for some fine precision that you can have with a manual hand tool. And with stuff like this, you know, it cost quite a bit. I think it was like $65 or $70, but with something like this, it's really easy with the power tool or something to get in there if you're not super careful and mess it up. And like I said, I just like the precision that you can have and control that you can with a hand tool. So keep on moving. Well, I used my hand file and got down pretty good. I test fitted on the pump, and you know, I think I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm pretty happy with it. I just brake cleaned it, so I think next step is gonna try to get it in there. All right, so what we're gonna take and do now is, it's very fortunate that this pickup has this little arm on it, this little L here, because it's going to allow us to hammer that specifically. The factory ones really don't have anything like that, but we're going to hammer it in, and then we're going to tack weld it on the bottom. So I got my dad here, who is our hammerer for the day.
And we're seated.
All the way down. So as you can see, it's got a little bit of a curve on it, but that's just the way that it's designed. And when it's in the block, it should sit pretty flush on the bottom of the pan. So now we're gonna take and get the MIG welder hooked up and tack it around.
Let me go a little bit more. Turn it over on its side a little bit. That's a good one.
All right, so here it is. May not be the prettiest, but by God, she's not leaving the pump. As you see, we got the pump on, got it torqued, and I'm going back through and checking the torque on all the main caps and rod caps and bolts. But I thought I would take this time to show you. Remember we were talking in an earlier episode about oiling. There's your crank journal for oiling your connecting rods and their bearings. Just thought I'd show you that since I had it apart. But working to get it ready to put the oil pan on it. So while I was cleaning the front timing cover and miscellaneous other parts, I found that we had this really bad crack here. Now I'm not sure how long it's been like that, but I just decided I was able to get on and find a replacement timing cover kit, actually super lucky, that already had the other miscellaneous timing cover parts that Pontiacs use. As you can see here, I got her installed, painted aluminum silver, and you can see I got the front oil seal on the timing cover already installed. So we're getting ready to test fit our oil pan. So, as many of you guys know, and gals, even though they have direct fit parts, that doesn't always make them direct fit. So this Canton Road Racing Oil Pan part 15450 that I got from Butler Performance, they said that this is a direct fit for a 70 to 81 Pontiac Trans-Am. Now, that it should be direct fit to the engine and to the car. But especially with aftermarket parts, you always want to double check your fitment and see how everything's going to go together before you count on it. Now I know that we're going to have the oil pan gasket help us with a little bit of spacing and whatnot, but still wanted to check our rear clearances here. I'll show you. I went ahead and got a new oil pan bolt kit from Butler because, like we talked about before, we had some mixed matched hardware for this. So wanted to take and just get rid of it and buy brand new hardware. But it's a nice stainless steel bolt kit that I was able to take and get. Now I'm sure that, you know, you could go down to Lowe's. In my opinion, Lowe's has a better bolt selection than Home Depot, but I guess that may depend on your area. But I'm sure I could have went down to Lowe's and got all this hardware from there, but I'd rather support a small company, a small business like Butler, and people that I take and buy a lot of parts from than, you know, on something small like this if possible. Well, I got it on, and it's a really nice pan. Whenever I originally had taken it out of the box a couple months ago when I got it, it is a really nice pan. It's zinc plated. And when I was talking to Greg at Butler about determining if I had to use a universal dipstick from Canton because I was running their pan and then I had to get a special pickup and all that, they said that there was really no benefit other than being able to be closer to the bottom of the pan with your new dipstick than the old one because it is a bit deeper of a pan, but there's really no benefit outside of just being able to read lower in the pan. And for me, that's fine. The only other issue I really see here that I kind of don't like is just how close this comes to the crank. I'm going to get online or look in my book and see just how much gap I'm supposed to have. I've got my factory pan over there that I could probably use to at least get an idea. But yeah, that's the only thing I really don't like. And one final thing before we close it out for this episode. Here is, in case I didn't show it to you guys yet, the one-piece oil pan gasket that we're putting on. Now, Piper and Prue have both been running these. Well, Piper's been running a pan gasket like this, as you saw when we took it apart, for the last 10 years or so. Ever since I found out that they started making these, I started using them, and Prue has one too. When I pull the 350 Pontiac engine out of Phoebe, we're going to be putting one of these on her also when we change her oil pan, which is pretty beat up from over the years. But I don't understand why factory they took and used a 4-piece gasket. I can't fathom why you would just do something so silly as that when a steel 1-piece gasket seems like a much better design and idea than using a multi-material design where your front was copper, your rear was copper, and your sides were rubber. Like that to me doesn't make sense. And I've seen the opposite where the sides are cork and the front and rear are rubber. Like, I just don't understand that. But this to me seems like a much better design. Like I said, steel reinforced. Your bolt holes have the steel lining through them also. So that way it won't distort. Now the back is where we had the issue before, where it distorted back here. I'm going to try to be much more conscious about this one this time, so that way we don't have the same problem. So I haven't put any RTV black, but I'm going to show you something I like to do, especially with these one-piece reinforced pan gaskets. So as you saw in the previous clip, it ships as straight. Now you could take and bend it. You need to put RTV here and in the back. But what I like to do before I get it all set up to go permanent on with RTV, I like to put the pan on and tighten it down. Like, I don't go to the torque spec, but I get it snug. So it bends on its own to the correct way. But yeah, I took and put all the bolts in, snugged them all down, and with the tightened up, there's the gap. Now I spun it over a couple times and it doesn't hit, but I don't know, just for me, that seems like a little bit too close. So, but yeah, it's snugged down pretty good. And yeah, I think I'm gonna pull it back off and put some RTV on it and call it a day. All right, y'all, that's gonna do it this time on the House of Kog. Look forward next time to our first fleet update. Jaime and I have been discussing what we'd like to do in regards to that. And we've decided every 10 episodes, we're going to try to do a fleet update. So look forward to that. There's going to be some interesting things that we're going to talk about. And our next major project car. So look forward to that. So, as always, as you guys are working on your projects or whatever y'all are doing, the House of Kog wishes you kapla. Till next time.